crew we've got here. Wow. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining with me today. As you see, we've got a lot of heavy hitters here. We've got Eric Sutton, Executive Director, Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. I think he may have changed his residence to Pinellas County by now. Gil McCrae, Director, Fish and Wildlife Research Institute, and Sean Hamilton, also been down here a lot, as our interim DEP Secretary. We have Dr. Tom Frazier, a former Chief Science Officer for Florida, is now a professor at USF College of Marine Science. We have Chairman Dave Eggers from the Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners, Ed Montanari, Chairman of the St. Pete City Council. We have Chris Steinacher, President CEO, St. Pete Chamber of Commerce, Christian Obenchain, owner, Pier Dolphin Cruises, Robin Miller, President CEO, Tampa Bay Beaches, Chamber of Commerce, Frank Shivas, President, Baystar Restaurant Group, Senator Roussan, Representative Nick DeSigli, Representative Chris Latvala, and then Representatives Coster and Cheney. So thank you all for joining us. We also have Ryan Griffin, Chamber past chair and owner of Mandarin Hide and Trophy Fish, Mike Hartling, owner of Three Daughters Brewery, Jim Jenkins, owner Savignon, and Mark Leteller, did I say that right? Woodhouse Day Spa. So I want to thank everybody for coming. This morning I was able to go with DEP and FWC to survey the impacts of red tide in the Tampa Bay area and to get an update on the mitigation efforts. At my direction, the state's been working with local communities here in Pinellas County as well as Hillsborough in an all-hands-on-deck approach to respond to the red tide that's been impacting the Tampa Bay area. I want to thank Sean Hamilton and Eric Sutton for their quick action and constant presence in response to the bloom. This has been a coordinated effort at all levels of government, with state, county, and city governments working together to clean up the fish kills resulting from this red tide event. And I was pleased to hear from everyone that was on the boat with me today that the bay looks a lot better than it did last week. And I think a lot of the reason for that was that everyone was on board to mitigate. And obviously we've put a lot of funding towards that and we'll continue to do more. So I thank them for their efforts. It really has made a difference, and you can see it not just being there in the boat. You look at the satellite imagery and how we're able to look at that now compared today to last week. It definitely has been an improvement. We hope that that will continue. Now, since taking office, we've made protection of water resources a top priority, including furthering our understanding of the complex issues surrounding red tide. When I was running in 2018, there was real intense red tide further south from here in southwest Florida that really had a negative impact on a lot of the livelihoods for employees and business owners and tourism in parts of southwest Florida. And so we came into office and we said, okay, we understand this is a difficult issue, but we want to put a lot of resources and expertise to bear to be able to provide ability to mitigate. So I reactivated the Red Tide Task Force, which had been dormant for 15 years, to research, monitor, and control and mitigate red tide and other harmful algal blooms in Florida's water. We also recommended the creation of the Center for Red Tide within FWC's Fish and Wildlife Research Institute, which has received $4.8 million each year since 2009 to detect, track, and mitigate red tide. Also signed legislation which established the Red Tide Mitigation and Technology Development Initiative, which is a partnership between FWC's Fish and Wildlife Research Institute and Mote Marine Laboratory to develop technologies and approaches to control and mitigate red tide and its impacts. We funded the partnership for a total of $18 million over a 6-year period. But also, equally as important, we developed a dedicated funding source in the annual budget to respond to red tide events, to respond to blue-green algae and other significant impacts, just like the one that we've been experiencing now. Before I took office, there was no dedicated source of funding in the annual budget to respond to red tide. That meant in order for the state to provide resources to assist in cleanup efforts, the state would have to actually declare a state of emergency and then grab unallocated general revenue. We've planned for mitigation efforts, we've appropriated the money for mitigation efforts, and we're using the funds just as they were intended to be used, and we're proud that we thought ahead and had the money ready to go. And so due to this proactive approach, DEP has already been able to commit $2.1 million to cover cleanup costs incurred for both Pinellas County and the city of St. Petersburg in response to this red tide bloom, and has the resources to continue to provide additional assistance. Hopefully the improvement here in the Bay is good. There is going to be up and down the coast, you do see other blooms, so there's going to be a need to do mitigation, not just in Tampa Bay, but in other parts of the West Coast. I'm glad that I was able to see progress reported. I think that in addition to the financial resources, both DEP and FWC have significantly increased monitoring and sampling efforts in Tampa Bay and the surrounding areas to provide the most up-to-date information regarding the concentrations and locations of red tide. The monitoring samples has increased 165% year over year compared to last year at this time. FWC's also deployed a sampling robot, which is an innovative technology that provides unprecedented information about how many red tide cells there are at a given time and the behavior of those cells. The robot collects samples every 20 minutes and processed over 500 samples in the last week. FWC has also dedicated a fixed-wing aircraft and helicopter to help monitor bloom conditions and strategically identify areas in need of cleanup. So again, we are committed to being in this fight, not just as we see through this current episode in the Tampa Bay, but understanding that this is an issue for the west coast of Florida that periodically occurs. And so we hope that some of the research that's being done will lead to even better ways to mitigate. I mean, for example, one of the things they're working on is doing some of this clay treatment. They've actually done a little bit of that here to try to see and monitor. You got to obviously know what you're getting into. You want to see what the reaction is and whether you're causing any problems. But they've been working on this ever since we really came in and got a lot of the funding landed. And so we're proud of that, and we're proud of the efforts that are going on. I also just want to thank all the folks here that are behind us. The local officials have been collaborating with Sean and Eric from really since we were here. I mean, in June we were here because we saw the blooms. We were going through some of the things that the state has done. We heard some scientists about what was going on. If you looked at the map then and leading up until Elsa, clearly Elsa pushed more of the blooms into Tampa Bay and led to some really intense events. We like the progress that's happened over the last year, or excuse me, over the last week, and we're going to continue working side by side. FWC, DEP, our administration, working with the county and other counties that are affected, as well as municipalities that are going to be affected. And we obviously anticipate some of the beach municipalities as we see the tide impacting those beach communities. So we want to be all hands on deck approach, and we want to make sure that we're all in this together. I want to bring up, we're going to have a number of people come up and offer some good commentary, which I think people will appreciate. So right now, I'm going to have Eric Sutton from FWC come up and deliver some remarks.
Thank you, Governor. Good morning, everyone. I'll be brief because I think the governor did an excellent job of covering a lot of our response. But I want to make sure and mention that day two, Governor, of your, when you were elected, we were down in Sarasota at Moat, and you pledged water quality, you pledged for red tide, and that is a very significant agenda that you've pushed forward, because that continued level of funding helps us better understand it. And for our community out there, you know, the good news is you have the best scientists in the world here focused on the red tide and harmful algal blooms. The bad news is the reasons they're here is because we've had those sort of blooms since the recorded time. So that consistent funding is really important. So thank you, Governor, for that. And I want to thank all of our partners that we've been working with. And as the Governor said, I'm going to be here till this event is done and available, because there's so many people that want to help. The most important thing is that we're communicating. And all these folks, if you don't have my number, you will. If you need me, we'll be there. And Sean and I are lockstep in making sure we're here for the community, because this community matters to me, it matters to Sean, it matters to all of us. So I'm pleased to be down here to help wherever I can. And again, thank you, Governor.
Great. All right, Sean Hamilton, Department of Environmental Protection.
Thank you, Governor. You know, similar to Eric, the governor did a great job of covering a lot of the specific response activities, but I do want to make it a point to Eric. Eric's been here day one, I've been here day one, so much so that Eric and I are starting to share a lot of the same commonalities, right? Well, in a good way, right? We are going to make sure that we are readily accessible to whatever level of government that needs support, right? This is a challenging issue when it starts to jump various boundaries and regions and et cetera. But the point is coordination and communication, right? And so we've been trying to facilitate those, you know, those opportunities for coordination between the various governments. And I think that's an important point. The financial side, like the governor said, we've got the vehicles in place and we will continue to support that. But I think it's important, like I said, the coordination between the municipalities and the counties, they're critical because there's only a finite amount of assets here in the region to respond. So we need the right assets at the right place at the right time. And all of the research and forecasting that's coming from FWC has been critical in that effort. And so again, just look forward to making sure that we see this all the way through. And we'll continue to work with our partners to make sure they know that they have our full commitment. Thank you, Governor.
Okay. Ed?
Thank you, Governor. And first of all, thank you for being here. And thank you for all the work that you and your staff have done to help us here in St. Petersburg. My family moved here in 1976. I've lived on the water since that time. I've never seen a red tide bloom like we've had here in Tampa Bay. And last week, it looked, the city of St. Petersburg was show center. And if you went out in a boat, Senator Rousseau and I went up in a helicopter, saw with our own eyes the amount of fish that were in Tampa Bay. And the ride that we just went on today, I was out over the weekend. It really has dissipated and moved out of Tampa Bay. And I'm just so impressed the way that the local government, the county government, and the state government has worked together. Executive Director Sutton, Eric, thank you for your help. Secretary Hamilton, your help has been tremendous also. The St. Petersburg City Council had Dr. Kate Hubbard come before our meeting last week, and she gave us a scientific explanation of how this latest bloom has happened, and it's really good to inform our local government and also inform our residents of how this happened and how we're dealing with it. And I'm so pleased that everybody's working together to improve our environment here in Tampa Bay and the city of St. Petersburg. Thank you, Governor.
Okay, thank you. Dave?
Yeah, thank you, Governor, for being here. My name's Dave Eggers. I'm the chair of the County Commission, and I really couldn't be more proud of the effort that's gone on among all the partners in the area, the cities, along the beaches, in the Bay Area, and our county folks. Kelly Hammer-Levy, our Public Works Director, has been leading a coordinated effort at taking care of the mitigation of the problems that we have. And that problem was going to continue up and down the beaches, but we wouldn't be here today with a cleaner bay if it hadn't been that group effort. And I just couldn't be more proud. Thank you, Governor, for being here. And thank you for the leadership of the folks that are standing behind us, because with that, I think we can take care of the problem. Also want to thank you for reconstituting that Red Tide Task Force a couple of years ago, because at the end of the day, making progress on that front is going to minimize these kind of reactionary things that we have. We're probably still going to have some of those, but I think together we'll try to, going forward, be in a better spot. So again, I really want to say thank you to all of the employees, especially out on the beaches here, that have gone into the canals to do the real dirty work. And it's been tough, but it's gotten done, and it's much better today in the Bay. And we'll see how it gets out on the beaches. It's going to be up back and forth, but we're going to make a community effort to make sure that we mitigate the problems. Again, thank you. Appreciate your being here.
Chris?
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Steinacher, President and CEO of the St. Petersburg Area Chamber of Commerce. Governor, welcome back. And thank you for the all-hands-on-deck approach to what you're working on. You know, if you just look around here, if there's going to be one place where we're going to have to solve a problem, it would be right here in this Innovation District of St. Petersburg. Think about it. We have 1,900 people working in this profession that deal with the science. We've got them all working together. You've got them here working. Secretary Hamilton and Director Sutton, thank you all for the resources, the time and energy with our businesses. You're showing up and you're being part of what we need, which is just communication right now, and the resources, and they're both there for us. We're proud of what Tampa Bay has done with our estuary program. 30 years ago, we were fighting a dead bay, and we brought it back to life. We know we can continue and battle this again. But what I want to thank our governor for, and want to make sure everyone understands, is our economy is open. Florida is open. While this bloom shows up in different spots at different times, what we all need to understand is our economy continues to operate. Our businesses stay open, our employees stay paid, and visitors still get experiences. Visitors need to pay attention to where the blooms are and learn and call the chambers and other places to understand how best to have an experience. But St. Petersburg, Tampa Bay, and Florida is open, and we thank our governor for that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right. Christian Obenshane?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I'm a fourth-generation St. Pete native and a two-time business owner in the St. Pete Marina. First of all, I want to say thank you, because without you, I wouldn't be able to start a sightseeing tourism business during a worldwide pandemic and be successful. I'm running 7 days a week from about 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. sundown. And we've had some red tide in June, July, and then Elsa came. And then all of a sudden it was right there in front of us in the marina. And the day that it happened, the day when I went back down to the boat to check on the boat, there are already people working, scooping up hundreds and hundreds of pounds of dead fish. But again, we're not in a state of emergency. I'm running, we're seeing dolphins, we're seeing wildlife, and I'm giving memories to people that they can take home with them when they leave here on vacation. So I just want to say thank you very much for your quick response. You guys have been in contact with me since probably 2 days after Elsa came through. I don't know who to call in the governor's office, but people have called me and asked me how things are going, and I appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Yep. Okay, Robin Miller.
Good afternoon. I'm Robin Miller, and I'm the president and CEO for the Tampa Bay Beaches Chamber of Commerce. Yes, the beaches, and that is covering over 14 beach municipalities. I have actually been in this position for 14 years, and I can tell you over that 14 years, this is the best cohesive and joint effort I have ever seen in any kind of crisis that we've been in. And kudos to our county, our even smaller municipalities, and at the state level. One of the things that I always say when I speak to groups is that our elected officials have to remember who elects them and who they work for, right? They get a check, sometimes not so large, but today is a great example of your elected officials standing here behind us, working on behalf of you. Our environment fuels our economy. Our economy is so dependent upon a great environment. This is the first time our state legislature has funded resiliency, funded water quality. I'm proud to be a Floridian. I thank each and every one of you for the hard work, and I know we're a team together, and we're going to pull through this as we do all the time. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Frank?
Hello, everyone. My name is Frank Shubis. I own commercial fishing boats. I also own a seafood business that supplies local restaurants throughout the Tampa Bay area. And I also own 13 seafood restaurants in the Tampa Bay area. I am here to echo what has been in recent papers and news about Florida's push for better response to the red tide issue. This is not a one-person problem, but it's all of Florida's problem. As we face 1,300 tons of dead marine life and debris, that's just alone in Tampa Bay. It is immensely impacting fisheries, tourism, public health. We need the state, the local officials, and the community to collaborate, to communicate, and to minimize the loss and issues that we are occurring due to red tide. And at this point, I want to thank the governor for everything you're doing. And I echo Robin's, I've never seen a better response to red tide than we've had here in the last couple months. We need to focus on projects that improve our infrastructure, because all through red tide occurs naturally. We are aiding it with runoff from sewage dumps, fertilizer-laden lawns, and farms that are giving these blooms a healthy diet. As of right now, I think the most important thing, or the important action, is bringing more boats that can assist in cleaning up. We need to get rid of the dead fish, and they've done an outstanding job in Tampa Bay, and I'm sure there's some loose ends there, but this thing is moving into the beach, and it'll affect even worse. Madeira Beach is going through that. They need help in cleanup right now. I was there this morning and seen acres and acres of dead fish in the intercoastal. We have the sources right in front of us with a large commercial fishing industry right here in Tampa Bay. Many of these boats are docked currently and can be hired to aid in the cleanup, as well as continue to feed their own families. So I think we need to get more boats out there, get rid of the dead fish, get them to the dump, get them burned up. And the main thing, like everyone has said here, is the key for everyone in this community is to work together, so we can assist all in a positive, and I mean positive, path forward that reduces the economic health, environment, and the impact associated with this red tide. And again, I want to thank everybody here, and this is what you call a team effort, is what's going on today. Thank you.
And I think the fact that you had a lot of folks out there mitigating, cleaning up some of the fish quickly is probably the main reason why it looks better, because if that stuff stays in there, it really exacerbates it. So the extent that there's other folks that could also participate who have the capacity with their boats, we want to help in terms of the county and these municipalities with the costs. We budgeted for this. We want to be able to help, and so if there's an ability to expand the efforts as this potentially moves in other parts, we want to be helpful with that as well. So I just again want to thank everybody for working really hard, and hopefully the improvements of the bay can continue. I'll take a couple questions.
Governor, you went through the laundry list of what's going to be done and improvements that are being made. Some of the community are still saying not enough is being done. What do you say to that?
Well, what we've said to the county and the locals, like, what more do you need? Tell us what you need, and we're happy to help with the resources that we have. Right now, the best thing is to get the cleanup quickly. That's what we've been told by every expert. But to the extent there's other things, let us know. We want to be helpful. FWC and DEP, they're all hands on deck. They want to do it. We've put an immense amount of resources. And just think, had we not done what I did to set the table for this when I first became governor, we wouldn't have been able to do half the stuff that we've been able to do. And I think that's just the fact that this is something we've taken seriously due to the experiences in the past that other coastal communities have seen. And I wish that pumping $14 million into a research would give us a cure for it. We'd never have to worry about it, but we know that that's probably not the way it works. But to the extent we have new technologies to mitigate, we think that that's something that's going to be very, very important. But we do have capacity to help with even more financial assistance. And so if there's an ability to do even more, let's work together and do it.
Doctor, what are your thoughts on the increase in visiting variant in COVID cases? Hospitals are reporting that
Okay. I'm happy to take that. Is there any other questions about this first, and then maybe I can go on and take that?
Yes, the St. Pete mayor tweeted that he was not invited to this press conference and that he politicized red tide. Do you plan on working with him?
How did I politicize red tide?
I'm just relaying what he tweeted.
Okay, well, you should look to see, is that credible to say that? This is something I tackled from day one in office. It's never been political. They were the ones who were saying, you got to declare a state of emergency. And so we asked them why. Well, they didn't know why. They just wanted to do it for a political talking point. The fact is, we budgeted for this. We have money for this. Ask some of these business owners. Actually, you guys, anyone want to talk about whether a state of emergency would be helpful for you or not? You want to say?
Yeah, we represent nearly 1,000 businesses on the beaches, and a state of emergency does not help our economic vitality at all. And what it does is it shines a light on the entire state of Florida. And so there could be ramifications outside of the Bay Area if there is a state of emergency issued. We've seen it in other crisis situations. So we are proud that we have someone protecting our economy and protecting our business community.
And again, there is not a,
I'd like to
oh yeah,
say
go ahead, yeah.
Personally, I think the most important thing, if you want to stop all the social media stuff and everything, get the damn fish cleaned up. That's what needs to happen, and that's what they're doing. And there's plenty of other boats. Like I said, we have the largest commercial fishing industry in the state of Florida. Hire these guys, and let's get the fish cleaned up. They're going to be on the beach, they're going to be in other places, but let's get ahead of it. Thank you.
And, the thing is that would not allow us to do anything that we're not already doing. The only way that would be helpful is if I had no money and I needed to access unallocated general revenue. We appropriated for this, not just red tide, but blue-green algae, because we knew that these were issues we had to tackle. So literally the only thing that would do is hurt some of these people, because it would send the message that somehow all of Florida has problems, when in fact, the economy's open here. People should be coming and check in with the Chamber of Commerce or the county about if there's blooms in an area. Absolutely, you should do that. But this place is open. They're doing well, and so it would have been very irresponsible to do that. That was made a political issue by them, not by me. We've answered every call with financial assistance, and we have millions and millions and millions of more dollars to be able to help, because we understood this is an important issue from day one of me being governor, and we planned appropriately. Yes, ma'am.
Governor, Gary has not been lives in a mobile home community that requires mandates of carport and shed. As of right now, Regal, Florida is not replacing
I will answer that, but is there maybe one more question about the issues that we have? Yes, ma'am.
Many believe that the Piney Point discharge has a lot to do with this bad red tide outbreak in Tampa Bay. What's your response?
So I think the scientific consensus is clear. It didn't cause the red tide. The red tide was here. I think the biggest impact on Tampa Bay was Elsa, unfortunately. But here's the thing. We're mothballing Piney Point. As soon as Piney Point, I went to the legislature, we got $100 million. And so as we're doing all this research on red tide in the future, all these other things, we have in place the ability to put that out to pasture. And I think that'll be a good thing just in and of itself. And we're going to get that done. And that's been a problem for like 30 years. And people have said, hey, what are we going to do with it? Finally, we're able to get it done. Okay, now I'll take your question.
Thank you. So Regal, Florida, as of right now, is not replacing his car for the shed. He's 74, he's on a fixed income. He's worried that he might get evicted. Can you look into helping Gary and people like Gary in this situation?
Yeah, so do you have the address and everything like that you could give, that I could give to the secretary?
Yes.
Okay, and this is mitigation from Irma?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yep, we're happy to do it.
Thank you.
Yes.
There was a report that Eric Sutton on a Zoom call with the Chamber of Commerce said we have to squash as much of the media attention on this as possible and get the message out there that we still don't know what causes red tide, that there are still plenty of pockets of clean water up and down the beach, and it is still totally safe for tourists to travel here in the summer so we don't lose their business. And some are saying that the mitigation efforts are more covering up the issue and trying to get a message out that everything's fine.
No, we're doing it because it's the right thing to do. Just like the reason why I reconstituted the task force in 19, the reason why we've done $14.8 million for red tide research here, the reason why we did the partner with Moat Marine, the reason why we did the millions and millions of dollars budgeted for innovative tech and response and cleanup efforts was because we think it's an important issue. In and of itself, obviously, because all Floridians care about mitigating any negative impacts to our wonderful environment, but also because if you were down in Southwest Florida in 2018 and you talked to those folks, I mean, it was a big, big problem. And yes, that's an economic issue, but it goes to more than just that. If somebody has a business that all of a sudden gets kneecapped because of something like this. And so our view was, okay, it is naturally occurring. That's correct. There's nothing, and it is safe to be in Florida. Those are both correct statements. And it's going to, not like red tide just going to all of a sudden go away. It has affected this coast for over 100 years. But if we're able to mitigate and we're able to do things like have a quick response, and if it's cleaning up the fish so that it doesn't exacerbate, and obviously people were happy with what it looks like this week over next, we're going to do that, but we're doing it because it's the right thing to do, and we're doing it because it's consistent with what I said we would do on day one. I hope to be able to come back here at some point in the future and say, you know, they've tried this treatment, they've tried this. It can mitigate X, Y, and Z and all these other things. I think we'll get there. We've made some good progress with blue-green algae. Red tide's a little more difficult, but you got some of the best people in our state that are studying this, and they now have the resources and the backing of the state government to be able to do the best we can. So then finally, the COVID question. So here's, I think, the most important thing with the data. If you are vaccinated, fully vaccinated, the chance of you getting seriously ill or dying from COVID is effectively zero. If you look at the people that are being admitted to hospitals, over 95% of them are either not fully vaccinated or not vaccinated at all. And so these vaccines are saving lives. They are reducing mortality. Mortality in nursing homes since we rolled out the vaccines in December is down over 95% due to COVID. Mortality for elderly people since we rolled out the vaccines is down nearly 90%. And so we're proud in Florida that we put seniors first on that because they were the most vulnerable. We have 85% of our seniors that are vaccinated and about 75% of folks over the age of 50. We have no mandate. We've provided information to people, and we've been very honest about any data that comes out. And I can tell you that if you look, you are seeing people that are vaccinated. For whatever reason, some I think can test positive if you're vaccinated. But they don't get seriously ill, except maybe rare instances. There's always one-offs on stuff. But I can tell you in Florida, your chance of surviving if you're vaccinated is close to 100%. And so we've worked very hard to get those vaccines into all our elderly communities and give it to other folks who could use it. Obviously, when you talk about some of the younger folks, the uptake has been less. I think that the distribution was very effective that we did, and I think we had a lot of good uptake on the Johnson & Johnson in March and into April. We saw a noticeable decline in J&J when they pulled it back because of the FDA. I think it was a huge mistake. I said so at the time, and I think that sent a message that maybe this is not something that they should be doing. I think that's been unfortunate because I took it. I think it's effective, but that is what we're seeing. So yes, and I said this a couple months ago. I told people to get vaccinated because we have a summer season here, just like last year. It started a little later this year, so you're going to have higher prevalence for the rest of July, probably into August, and then it goes back and goes the different waves. If you're vaccinated, those waves are not going to impact you in any significant way, and I think that's the important message for people. I get a little bit frustrated when I see some of these jurisdictions saying, even if you're healthy and vaccinated, you must wear a mask because we're seeing increased cases. Understand what that message is sending to people who aren't vaccinated. It's telling them that the vaccines don't work. I think that's the worst message you can send to people at this time, because I think that the data has been really, really good in terms of preserving people, saving people's lives, reducing mortality dramatically, and I can tell you that you're going to end up having over 95% of folks that end up seriously ill from this point on are going to be people who are not vaccinated. And so that's the single most important thing that people can understand. And I understand the folks who, when we first rolled this out, oh my gosh, it was like the new iPhone times 10. I mean, I'm going down to nursing homes. I would go to senior communities. They were so happy, these seniors. There was not a demand problem. It was a supply problem. And as we got more and more, we did millions and millions of seniors. And we're really proud of that. As you got into the general public, particularly under 50, the interest in it was obviously not as intense. And so we've done a lot of people. We've done millions of people who are under 50 as well. But you're in a situation now where a lot of the folks who are not taking it, it's accessible to everyone, they have different reasons for why they don't take it. And I think that the more they're hectored by government officials or some of these folks, that is not gonna get them to yes. I can tell you that right now. I think these are folks that have skepticism of authorities. I think they have different reasons why they may not do it. I don't think most of them think COVID is a hoax or anything. I think that they understand. Some of them are very young and healthy, and they're making the calculation that they'll likely be able to handle it, and I understand that too. But as you're trying to reach some of these folks, I think it's important to just be honest with them about the risks of COVID. If they are in a less risky category, you should just be honest with that and not try to scare people into taking it, which a lot of these authorities have done. They see that, and I think that they're very keen on that. So what my view has always been is these vaccines, and you can look at the EUAs, there are occasionally some side effects. But if you're 70 years old, man, the benefit is so much better than worrying about some of that. It's not even close. You know, as you get talking about young kids, parents going to look at that and maybe make a little bit different calculation, and that is fine, but just understand where we're at, understand the benefits, particularly folks who may have health conditions or who are a little older. And I can tell you the data has been very strong. If the data wasn't strong, then we would have to acknowledge that to people, and I would be the first to want to do it. But the data has been really strong. When you have these upticks, it's affecting, for things beyond cases, it's affecting in a clinical way people almost entirely who are unvaccinated. I also I've never been driven by the case counts, because you have people who may test positive now, we know, who are vaccinated. And so they'll be positive, but they're almost entirely not going to get a serious illness. And so to me, it's about preventing the illness, not a positive test. You know, in the clinical trials, when they did it in Pfizer and Moderna, it was 95%, both of them I think were 95% effective at preventing a subsequent infection. But notice how they defined a case in those clinical trials. They defined the case to be either a positive test and a symptom, or I think in Moderna said if you had 2 identifiable symptoms, that could be a case. Neither of them said just a positive test with no symptoms counted as a case. And so some people are saying, well, they said 95% you wouldn't get, quote, infected. But some of the folks that have tested positive literally just have a positive test and don't have any symptoms. And so for me, I'm interested in the clinical outcomes here, and I think that viewing it as, are you symptomatic? Are you going to be a hospital admission? Are you going to be in intensive care? Obviously, is your life going to be threatened? I mean, those are the key things. And these vaccines make it so that your chance of survival is pretty doggone close to 100%. And so I think that that's the best message we can provide for people. All right, I'll be back soon. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.